So Bethan, you are one of our policy and external affairs managers here at CHC. What did you make of that budget? You probably were watching it very closely.
I was watching it closely. It was a very interesting budget. The felt most important for us in Wales was that we'll receive £2.5 billion additionally in funding. How that will look in practice is yet to be seen. We need to work out whether that money is new money and how it will be spent in Wales. I think as well, what I felt was really interesting was seeing the Chancellor make out that this was a record-breaking budget, loads of record-breaking funding commitments, which feels positive. However, critics will say that this is simply demonstrating that not enough money has been spent over the last decade.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of detail to chew on, as always, with these budgets. And you've got that situation, haven't you, whereby a Westminster Chancellor is announcing all this money for the UK, but of course, as we know, many of these different areas are devolved, and he doesn't have responsibility over financing these devolved areas of spending. So specifically then on housing, was it mentioned? And if so, what does it mean for us here?
Yes, housing was mentioned. We saw some big numbers around housing, 24 billion for housing in general and 11.5 billion for social housing in general. As you just said, it's devolved. That money and those commitments are specifically for England. However, it will trickle into Wales. We just need to analyse what that will look like.
Yes, and I suppose we know, though, there are huge funding pressures on housing. So anyone in the housing sector would probably want to see that money translate directly across. If you look at some of the ongoing pressures, decarbonisation springs to mind. That's a huge cost pressure, isn't it?
It's a huge cost pressure, and we've got COP26 around the corner, so it's a huge priority as well, and it's imminent. So that money needs to trickle down into Wales, and it needs to be used towards low carbon housing, and that's to build new low carbon housing, but that's also to retrofit the over 300,000 social homes that we have in Wales to make sure that they're zero carbon, and to help both UK governments and Welsh governments to reach decarbonisation targets.
Absolutely. And one other area that springs to mind from that budget, which CHC's worked closely on, is around universal credit. It will affect many thousands of people in social housing across Wales. What was there to say about universal credit?
So universal credit, the tapering has been reduced from 63% to 55%. Now, this is positive news for those who are in work. That means that they're going to be able to earn more without being penalised. However, what I will say is that this doesn't offset the £20 per week that millions of people have lost when that was ended at the beginning of October. The tapering, it wasn't designed for that reason. It was designed to allow people to work more without losing money. However, the tapering measure is no help at all for those 2 million people work, mostly who are sick, disabled, and caring for young children as well.
Yeah, well, lots of detail to continue to chew over. I know you'll be doing that along with other policy colleagues in the coming hours. Beth, thank you so much for giving up your time.
Thanks, James.